Saturday. West to south showers. To southwest.
Well, we're under a severe thunderstorm watch today, so I'm not entirely sure I'm going to be heading out anytime soon. I'll check it out again when they have the next forecast. It's not the very best time for cruising, of course. It scares everybody. And from time to time, the weather does get like this. And what do you do when you're stuck on a boat and it's raining, or anyway, you can't leave for whatever reason? Well, it's time to tell stories. And that's the great thing. Boaters have been doing this for years and years and years. And so I'd like to start a tradition of telling maritime stories on the internet. Small boat cruising shouldn't just be reserved for the rich. I believe we all should be allowed to take the time to enjoy the adventure. Let's get ready, learn a few necessary skills, find a boat, and take off for the adventures of our lives. I'm Alan Stokel, and this is Budget Boat Cruising. One of the stories that amuses me the most is on my previous boat, Joss. I was single-handing, and I was heading up Lake Ontario, and it was during the Toronto Star Salmon Derby, and I was out. It was very foggy, but there was no other boats to be seen. So I got a sudden urge to go to the washroom, if you know what I mean. Now, at that time, I didn't have an auto helm. So the only thing I had in the way of an auto helm was a bungee cord, which I used to put on the gunnels and wrap around the tiller. And so anyway, that's exactly what I did. And I went below to go to the washroom. And it was a fairly long time down in the head. And if you're familiar with the Grampian 26, the head is very close to the forward hatch. It's not possible to just stand up in the head and look through the forward hatch, but you just put your top part of your body through the V-berth, and sure enough, there you are. So at any rate, here I am sitting on the head, contemplating my next move. And I start hearing all these people yelling and air horns honking and all this commotion. And so I managed to stand up after a couple of seconds of cleaning up a little bit and stick my head through the forward hatch. And sure enough, I'm going right through the Toronto Star Salmon Derby. And there was all these boats, and everybody was really ticked off with me. So anyway, another story that comes to mind was when I was sailing with my friend Colin, and Colin's always had an inflatable dinghy because he loves to sail in Georgian Bay and the North Channel, and he pretty much needed a dinghy to be able to get to shore. And of course, he used to sail with three dogs. Three dogs. And so at any rate, obviously you have to take them ashore. So one time, I'm not exactly sure where we were, but we were in the North Channel. He had prepared the dinghy, and he was sort of in a hurry to get going, and he kept on saying to me, "Alan, come on, get in the dinghy." And I don't know what I was doing, but so I got out into the cockpit, and the dinghy was there, So to save a little time, instead of slowly putting my feet down on the inflatable side and then putting another foot down on the floor, I decided to simply jump from the gunnel down into the dinghy. Now, if you could imagine this, it's a little bit like jumping onto a trampoline. So here I go, I jump down, and of course I bounce right back up. And when I bounce back up, when I'm coming back down, I'm in the water. And I wear glasses. I'm going down in the water, and it's getting darker and darker. I had no idea how dark water is when you go. I don't know whether it was 10 feet, 20 feet, but I was still going down. And it was getting very dark. And I was kind of panicking. I knew enough to hold my breath, but I thought, I should be coming back up pretty soon. And sure enough, after what seemed like an eternity, but it was probably only several seconds, I started coming back up. And when I got to the surface, of course, I took the big breath. Much to my surprise, I still had my glasses on. Go figure. I don't do that anymore. Now, another strange thing that happened in Georgian Bay was when we were making for Killarney, and we just got past Portobello. So we got past the Portobello light, and we were making for Killarney. And sometimes it can be a bit of a passage, depends on the weather. And this particular day, we sort of wanted to do it as quickly as possible. And the wind was in the wrong direction, so we were actually motoring. And so we were motoring along about 6 knots on Collins CNC 30. And this was before GPS, but Colin was saying to me, Alan, can you find a buoy? And of course he gave me the binoculars, and I was out there looking for a buoy, and I spotted a buoy. Well, what I thought was a buoy. And I was telling him where the buoy was and telling him to head in that direction, etc. And so when we got, I don't know, it could have been 2 or 3 kilometers away, I realized it wasn't a buoy, that it was something else, that it was, well, I wasn't sure what it was, but it was white, and it was quite large, and it was floating in the water. So we decided to check it out, and we went up to it, and it turns out it was a very large jet ski. I mean, we think of jet skis as being 1 or 2 person things, but this was one that was made by, I believe it was Bombardier, and it was like a 6 person jet ski thing. It was a jet powered, but it was not your small little, what I call them mosquitoes, whatever it was. So Colin, being a lawyer, starts quoting the right of salvage, and I believe that when you find something in the ocean, I don't know, this is the Great Lakes, but when you find something in the ocean, that you have a right to take it. So he said to me, would you like it? And I said, no, I'm sailor through and through, definitely don't want stuff like that. I said, how about you, Colin? He said, no, I don't want it. So went down below, did a check of our exact longitude and latitude, and he got on the radio, and he said to to Canada Coast Guard that we'd found this floating boat and gave the longitude and latitude. And they thanked us very much, and after about 10 or 15 minutes after we cleared, we just thought nothing more of it. And we got into Killarney, and we're on the dock. And Colin's one of these people who's very observant, and as we were walking along, I think it was the Sportsman's Inn is where we were staying. As we were walking along the dock, he said, "That boat has exactly the same font lettering as the lettering on that boat that we'd left in the middle of Georgian Bay." So he knocked on the hull and he said, "Are you missing a well, I don't know what they call them. No. Let's say it was a jet ski." And they said, yes, we are. It came off the tow rope." And he said, "Well, we found it." He said, "Where is it?" And he said, "Well, we don't really know because we just told the Coast Guard, and probably they informed someone who would take it, so probably another marina who would go out and get it and bring it back." So we recommended that he check with the Canadian Coast Guard, and sure enough, within an hour or so, they came back and said, "Oh yes, we've checked with the Coast Guard, and yes, it has been found." And at that point, they gave us a bottle of wine. Now it was homemade wine, and I got to tell you, it was the worst homemade wine I've ever had in my entire life. So listen, I hope you enjoyed my yarns. Please give me a thumbs up and watch my commercials. It helps me keep sailing through my retirement. Subscribe if you haven't already, and tell your own stories in the comments below. That would be really great. I'm Alan Stokela, and thank you very much for watching.